Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger, and it is the Wednesday before, the day before a pivotal Thursday night matchup between the Seahawks and the 49ers. The Seahawks will be wearing their throwback jerseys, so that'll be nice to see. 49ers will be decked out in their all whites. So this is I don't think I have to tell anybody how big of a game this is, but it's critical for both teams. And I will go through and break down every aspect of this game. And despite the fact that I clearly am biased towards the Seahawks, I'm going to tell you all the things I think the 49ers have an advantage in and what they will be trying to do. I will tell you where I think the Seahawks have an advantage in what they will try to do, and maybe where there'll be some surprises, where there'll be some things that are unexpected in this game or have not, that might break from some tendencies in the past few weeks. We will watch some film together. We will talk about numbers together. We will talk about strategy together. We will talk about it all over the next hour. And then at the 9 o'clock hour, I will welcome in Big Ray Roberts. We will actually close up shop on this episode, reopen on the Big Ray's Rewind episode. It makes it easier for people that are not watching live to have these as separate shows. So you'll have to jump over to that, but shouldn't be a problem. So that'll happen at the 9 o'clock hour. We will talk about this game with Big Ray Roberts, as well as some of the things that he saw in the disappointing loss to the Giants. So we'll look through some film with him and talk about what he heard. And then at 6 o'clock tonight will be Real Hawk Talk. We will get Jeff Simmons. We will get Nathan Ernst. We will talk about this game one more time today. So triple pod Wednesday. Excited to have you all. Good morning to you all. Let's get into it. So this is a game where the Seahawks are the underdogs. They are, last I checked, let's actually give just the very, very latest point spread. And I get my point spreads where all of you should get the latest point spreads and the betting model and probabilities. If you go over to ftnfantasy.com, use promo code HBAM, you will get access to FTN Plus. Less than $8 a month, gives you all the things you need for fantasy football, for betting, but also just for data. And a lot of the stuff we'll talk about today will come from FTN, DVOA data, other things. Less than $8 a month. I'm a subscriber. You should be as well. So as far as the latest odds for this game between the Seahawks and the 49ers, it opened up as a 4-point favorite for the 49ers. It, I think, got down to about 3, and currently it's at 3.5. And so the Seahawks are a home underdog. And that's not uncommon in this matchup over the last 3 years. In fact, you may be surprised to hear, or maybe not, that is one of the closest lines we have seen between these two teams over the last 3 years. Dating back to 2022, the Seahawks have only been less than a 7.5-point underdog once. That was in 2022, a Thursday night game as well. For some reason, these teams have played multiple Thursday night games over the last every year for the last 3 years, including this one. They played a Thursday night game, and in that game, both of them were home. All the Thursday night games so far have been home for the Seahawks. And the Seahawks were only 3-point underdogs in that game. They had ended up losing that game 21-13. And in every other game, they were at least a 7.5-point underdog. They were as much as a 13.5-point underdog last year at San Francisco. This is the game where Drew Lock had to start. But they have lost by double digits in every game except for the one where they were only 3-point underdogs. And in that game, they still lost by 8 points. So this hasn't been close. This has not been close. The 49ers have not only been the better team, they have been far and away the better team between the Seahawks and the 49ers. And what's worse is that what you've gotten with this game is you've got a a team that has physically dominated the Seahawks. And when you are unable to stop a team physically, the implications of that in a football game are pretty much you're going to lose. It is very, very rare to be that overmatched physically and win the ball game. And this is a clip from the Pardon My Take podcast from last year. And George Kittle was asked about whether there's ever times where you just run the same play over and over and over again. Here's what he said.
The soul out of the other team.
We've had a couple games, like we've had 2 games versus the Seattle Seahawks where we ran like power load 5 straight times to win the game.
Yeah.
And we didn't change anything. We just literally ran like 2 tight ends, Kyle Juszczyk in a wing, and we just ran power down these guys' throats. And it was one of the most satisfying moments of my career.
That's what this matchup's been. They have been able to talk like that about this Seahawks team, and Seattle hasn't been able to stop it. And I think what makes Seahawks fans uncomfortable in this game is that the last 2 games that happened in just a few days earlier, they saw similar outcomes. They saw teams running it down their throats. And so your first place that your mind has to go in this game is, can the Seahawks stand up to the 49ers physically? And that starts on the offense for the 49ers and the defense for the Seahawks. And so I want to start, we're going to kind of go through this game, different aspects of it. And what I want to start there with is I'm going to give you some FTN numbers that might be a little bit surprising and were surprising to me. And so wanted to share them with you. DVOA has a lot of interesting intricacies. One of them is on how you do in terms of handling power runs and stuffed ranks. And so what a power means, just to be clear on that, power is going to be a situation where you're bringing, extra blockers to one side, you're pulling somebody, something along those lines. And the Seahawks are actually 12th in the NFL in defending power runs. That's exactly what George Kittle was talking about. If you go back to 2023 and you look at how the Seahawks were in defending power, I'm going to pull that up right now and I'll let you know. The Seahawks in 2023 were ranked 28th in the NFL in defending power runs. So it's a significant change for the Seahawks. Even though we have seen this team give up a lot of rushing yards, the types of rushing yards so far have been a little bit different. If you look at the 49ers offensively, let's take a look at the 49ers offensively, and you check out what they do in running power, running plays. In 2023, the 49ers were 7th in the NFL in running power plays, power runs. In 2024, the 49ers are ranked 26th in the NFL in running power. So that does not mean all of a sudden the 49ers are pushovers or they're easy. But I wanted to start just by giving you a different view of something that's been a critical part of this game so far, this matchup in the last few years, is how both teams have done in kind of bully ball running game. And so Jordan Mason is a guy that has, as a running back, has more broken tackles than any running back in the NFL. Now, he has those partially because he has more carries than, pretty much anybody in the NFL. But I think you're seeing a different 49ers team without Christian McCaffrey. I think you're seeing a different 49ers team with them relying a little bit more on Brock Purdy. And what I wanted to show you a little bit is some film of a few plays where you're going to see the difference between blitzing and not blitzing Brock Purdy. And there's a couple things in what I'm going to show you here that actually have relevance for the Seahawks offense. Even though we're going to be talking about the 49ers offense, it is going to have relevance for the Seahawks offense, and I'm going to talk about it probably at the same time. Hopefully I won't confuse you all. Before I do that, I see we've got a super chat from Kyle Flood. He says, Connor Stallion said that he learned the most from Mike Macdonald and Jay Harbaugh, and Macdonald was the smartest coach he's been around on the Bussin' Pod. Yeah, I actually heard about this. Jeff Simmons was telling us about it. That's pretty cool. We could talk as much as we want about Mike Macdonald being one of the smartest coaches. He's going to have to use every brain cell he's got to figure out how to take what he's got on defense, injury-wise, cohesion-wise, and be good enough to keep the Seahawks in this football game. So let me show you a couple things. Part of why I'm showing you this is that Brock Purdy has struggled against the blitz this year. He is a much different quarterback when blitzed. Now, I'm going to show you a few different plays when he gets blitzed. And part of what I want to show you is the 49ers like these condensed formations. Look at the receivers here, everybody inside the numbers, okay? And what that does is I'm going to show you a few plays where the defense is doing what the Seahawks, what Mike Macdonald wants to do. A light box, meaning that you're going to have two deep and you're going to have only, you're going to have like 6 in the box, essentially. And one of the things that's important to understand, and I talked about this with Robert Mays, he talked about it with Deontay Lee on his podcast, is that when you run these tight formations, it gives defenses the opportunity, like defensive coordinators, the opportunity to say, oh, if you're going to be tight, then that brings my defenders closer to your quarterback, okay? What that means is that you're going to be able to potentially send more blitzes. And there's a lot of reasons in this game. I believe Mike Macdonald is going to send different blitzes, more blitzes, run blitzes, pass blitzes. I think he is going to be more aggressive. It's going to be a little bit higher risk, but I think it's going to be something that they really probably have to lean into in this game. And so what you see here with the Vikings is that they have a light box, and let me roll it for you. They're going to end up bringing this linebacker, these 4, and Brock Purdy. The blitz gets picked up. Brock Purdy does what he's been doing most of the season. And in this case, it works out. He breaks from the pocket. And look, top of his drop, he's got a guy open right here. This guy is running to space. Purdy is locked in here. And there's not opportunity. So he's not going through his progressions very well. So then he panics a little bit and decides to break the pocket, even though there's no need to. Turns out to work out for him here. All right? He hits Kyle Juszczyk on that pass. So next play. This is against the Jets, right? A little bit less of a condensed formation, but still another light box, another blitz, quick pass. So Purdy has shown the ability to get rid of the ball quickly on some of these plays. But I want to show you here. Now, this is another great example. Super condensed formation. And Kyle Shanahan is known, he likes condensed formations. He likes creating space out. He likes creating space with crossers over here, right, across the field. So he likes these condensed formations. It's unlikely he's going to get out of these condensed formations. And what this is going to do is that it's going to give Mike Macdonald the opportunity to be a little more creative in the blitzes that he sends. Now watch this one from the Jets. You got a lot of guys near the line of scrimmage. These are the 5 guys that come right here, okay? Pretty good protection. Good throw from Brock Purdy in that case. So you're not guaranteed. I'm not going to say you're guaranteed of getting these blitzes home, but Brock Purdy has thrown, I think, 3 of his 4 interceptions against blitzes. These are some of the good moments, and I want to make sure I'm balanced here. Like, this is not a guarantee that if you blitz Brock Purdy, he's going to lose his mind and not be able to play. But over the course of the year, he has been much less effective against the blitz. So you see a lot of these quick outs. You see a lot of fighting after the reception. Tackling is going to be a big deal in this game for the Seahawks, especially in the secondary, and that's been an issue. But you see again, like these blitzes, he's having to get rid of it quickly. When Brock Purdy is having to get rid of things quickly, generally his opportunity for meaningful yards goes down. He needs usually at least 2.5 seconds to do something interesting. Here, he gets the ball out. These are all, like, generally, these are pretty good plays. But we will get to some of the ones that don't turn out as well for him. And so here's one here that he gets plenty of time. Once again, he scrambles out. Often is scrambling out. Well, that was the same one. Did we start going back again? There we go. Sorry, folks. I'm pretty sure we already saw that play, so I was confused why we were seeing it again. This is one where I'm pretty sure Trent Williams is unable to pick up the extra blitz. Trent Williams actually gets driven back. If you watch Trent Williams on this play, he gets driven back into the lap, and Purdy gets brought down. So I'm not going to keep showing, this over and over again, but the point there is if you look at Brock Purdy and you look at the splits of when he's blitzed on the year, he has 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and an 85 passer rating. When he is not blitzed on the year, Brock Purdy has 3 touchdowns and 1 interception and a 100.8 passer rating. He is a significantly better quarterback when he is not blitzed. So this has been something that Mike Macdonald has been reluctant to do, but I do believe that he's going to have to do it in this game. And the other piece here is that one of the interesting parts with the 49ers from a running perspective, they have struggled to be as committed and consistent with the run game as they normally are. As good as Jordan Mason has been, they've gotten away from it, and there have been games where, especially in the red zone, they have not utilized Jordan Mason nearly as well as, most 49ers fans would like to see. He started off the year 147 yards against the Jets, 100 yards against the Vikings, 28 carries, and then 20 carries. He had 24 carries against New England. In the games that the 49ers have lost, they only ran the ball 14 times with Jordan Mason against the Cardinals. He was effective, 6.4 yards a carry, but only 14 carries. Against the Rams, 77 yards, only 19 carries, 4.1 yards. Part of what the Seahawks are going to need to do is to figure out how to get the 49ers away from their run game. They are going to have some success early on and get Kyle Shanahan interested in other parts of his game. Kyle Shanahan has fallen in love with Brock Purdy and feels a lot of trust in Brock Purdy. And he is having significantly more opportunities to throw the ball this year than he has in past years. In fact, if we take a look real quick, Brock Purdy's passes per game over the last couple years, he has thrown the ball at least 30 times in 3 of the 5 games. And in fact, 29 times or more in 4 of the 5 games. He only had 30 or more pass attempts in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games all of last year. 5 games all of last year. He's already got 3 this year. So Kyle Shanahan is going to him a lot more often. Brock Purdy's had a mixed bag. He's had a mixed bag over that time. He has got 6 touchdowns, but he's got 4 interceptions. And some of these interceptions are pretty fluky. Like I don't think he's made really bad choices. But he's got 4 picks. Geno Smith, same thing. Some of these interceptions are certainly fluky, tipped passes. Same thing with Brock Purdy. But the other thing that's happening with Brock Purdy is that he is holding on to the ball longer than any quarterback in the NFL, 3.15 seconds. And in fact, in situations, one of the things I was looking at here, when he's taking going longer than 2.5 seconds, when he's something like it's not a quick throw, essentially the non-quick throws. I mean, this is nuts. In those situations, Brock Purdy's holding onto the ball an average of 3.6 seconds. He is pressured in 42% of those situations. To give you a comparison, Geno Smith, even when he's going longer than 2.5 seconds, is still, 3.2, 3.3 at most, right? When he is quick, when he is under 2.5 seconds, and by the way, on those long developing plays, Brock Purdy's had some success, but all 4 of his interceptions have come on those kinds of plays. 5 of his 6 touchdowns, though, have come on those kinds of plays. When he is a quick passer, when he has to get rid of the ball in less than 2.5 seconds, first of all, it doesn't happen very often. But when it does, he's only getting pressured 9% of the time in those cases. So it's not getting rid of the ball because pressure's getting to him. He's getting rid of the ball because that was the play call or he saw something. He is a more accurate passer. But he is a less dangerous passer. Only 1 touchdown in those situations. So you need to find ways to get Brock Purdy off of his first read. You saw some of those clips where he's a little bit uncomfortable and he wants to break pocket and be creative. And sometimes those are, great plays. And I think one of the key problems for the Seahawks to pay attention to in this game is that they're probably going to be without Reek Woolen. We'll see if they go to Artie Burns instead of Nehemiah Pritchett. That's what I hope happens. But when you have scramble drills and you're asking corners to cover for that long against players like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, that's tough. That's a tall order. And so in one way, you want to get Brock Purdy scrambling. In another way, you want to get Brock Purdy getting rid of the ball quickly. So, like, strategically, it's a tough thing. I think essentially what you're going to look for from Mike Macdonald is I think he's going to try to heat things up a little bit more. And Brock Purdy has mentioned that they've watched the film of the Baltimore game where he had a terrible game in that one, 4 interceptions, I think a fumble as well, and that the Seattle defense looks a lot like that. I'd be surprised if Mike Macdonald just does exactly what he's been doing. I think he's going to have to do something different. To that point, it is now known. It is known that when the Seahawks are in a light box, which means that they've got 2 safeties deep, the important thing to understand in that situation is the Seahawks are making a choice that they'd rather have an extra defender in coverage than against the run. And just so people understand the implications of that, when you have one less defender in the box, what you're saying is there is going to be a running lane, a gap, a run fit. There's going to be a gap, a hole, that is not going to be covered. You don't have enough people to cover every possible spot that the running back could go. And so that then implies that your linebackers are going to have to get off of blocks and fill the right gap. And Jerome Baker talked about this yesterday, that they weren't doing this very well. They were actually jumping into gaps too early, giving the running back a clear opportunity to pick the open gap and gashing them, and that they have to work better together. Jerome Baker, Tyrell Dodson have basically barely played together. That was their first, I think, full game together since week 1. Did Jerome Baker even play in week 1? I can't remember. So they are getting used to each other. They're going to have to make some choices. If so far, when the Seahawks have had a light box, teams have run all over them. To that end, let me see if I can pull up numbers on this. I think I can, but I want to double check and see if I'm right. So, it does not look like what I'm looking for will give me that split. But, oh, I do have that. Awesome. Okay. So when the Seahawks go light box, opponents are averaging 6.4 yards per carry. That is 27th in the NFL. Okay? This is a huge issue for them. 49ers, by the way, are 6th in the NFL, allowing only 4.2 yards per carry in light boxes. When the Seahawks have a neutral box, they just have 7 defenders, okay, like the normal amount, then they are 5th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed, 3.7. That's not even a heavy box. That's just neutral. Okay? So this critical decision that Mike Macdonald's been making and trying to make is to actually give them more players in coverage, and it hasn't been working. It has been giving them fits against the run. And so if I look at the number of plays, there are 84 plays where they have been neutral, 7 defenders in the box. There have been 188 plays where the Seahawks have been light box. And so in the situations where they go stacked box, 8 players or more, let's take a look at that. the Seahawks are allowing 2.7 yards per carry. Interestingly, and this is kind of wild, the 49ers are dead last in the NFL when they stack the box. They're allowing almost 6 yards per carry when they stack the box. That might be a couple big runs, things like that. But this is a key part of this game. And so what I think you're going to see, what you have seen from Mike Macdonald, is he's been stubborn about trying to stick with the light box. I think he could still stick with the light box and change his front. He could go with more bare fronts underneath. That's something that puts more people on the line of scrimmage and can kind of predict a little bit more where the runs will go. He can do what's called run blitzes. He can have his guys essentially attack a specific gap, knowing that that might force the run a different direction and give them a chance to it's kind of like forcing somebody to their offhand. If you know that they're going to go a certain direction, then you can kind of anticipate where the run might spill to. The problem with run blitzes, like any blitz, is if you call a run blitz from one side and the run's to the other side, you are now not just in a outnumbered situation. You're like the potential for an explosive goes way up. So this is exactly what Mike Macdonald and Dirty are trying to figure out right now. Do they want to do run blitzes? Do they want to change their front underneath? These are the kinds of decisions that they're having to make. And I think it's going to be there's just no way. I mean, I have too much respect for Mike Macdonald and Adam Dirty. There's no way that they're going to come into this game and say, we're just going to play light boxes exactly the way we've been playing the last two games. There's just to expect that to all of a sudden be better against this 49er team. I don't buy it. Now, the challenge is if they're going to do something they haven't been doing a lot of, they're not practicing right now, folks. They have barely practiced in the last 2 weeks. They had a short week after the Lions game. They gave a day off for recovery. They're really trying to take care of their bodies. You know, most of these things have been walkthroughs. They might have had one 90-minute practice last week. I doubt they're going to have any real practice this week. They've had 2 walkthroughs so far. So if you want to change something, you're doing it in shorts and you're doing it without contact. And it's hard to really change something when you can't practice it. So this is the conundrum for Mike Macdonald. He knows he's got to change, but he's got to do things that he feels like the team is capable of executing correctly. And he might not know for sure what those things are until the game gets going. We got a super chat here from Detail Oriented. Hey, Bobby. He says, Brian, it appears our secondary is really slow. I don't know if it's angles or our true speed, but if players get into secondary, teams get huge chunk plays. Your thoughts? Am I misreading this? I actually don't think the secondary is slow. I see it quite differently. I thought the secondary looked incredibly active and fast against the Broncos. I think that there were definitely plays against the Dolphins where I felt like that is an incredibly fast Dolphins team, and our secondary seemed to be ahead on most of those plays. What might be affecting your perception is when you've got an offense really beating you, like they are calling plays that are working, either leading to open players or they're running effectively, or they're doing things where you've got play action. And so there's some pretty wide open spaces for guys to run to. It's going to be hard for a defense to excel in those situations. And you are going to be trailing, in a lot of those moments. And so I don't think speed is the issue for the Seahawks. I do think, Trey Brown had a bad game against the Giants. He knows it. The coaches know it. They've talked about it. Adam Dirty yesterday spoke about how Trey Brown was working on exactly the things that were an issue. Look, if they're going to be likely down Reek Woolen, it's going to be an issue. If they put Nehemiah Pritchett out there, God help us, man. I mean, putting a rookie out there against the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, I mean, he is going to get it all night, and I just don't think he's ready for it. I think Artie Burns is a much better choice. We will find out whether or not that's the case. So with that, a quick reminder that a lot of this data that I'm sharing with you is coming from FTN, ftnfantasy.com. If you use promo code HBAM, you get 15% off, less than $8 a month. Make sure you take advantage. I'm a subscriber. It is fantastic. Highly, highly recommend it. Also, make sure you like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it if you haven't already. Now, that is the 49ers on offense. And I mean, this is a big part of this game, is looking at how the 49ers would attack the Seahawks. Because if the Seahawks defense does not play better than they've played the last 2 weeks, then this game is probably going to go their way. It's going to go the 49ers' way. And there's a lot of ways that the 49ers can find success offensively against a defense that will be without Byron Murphy, that does not going to have Uchenna Nwosu, may not have Derek Hall. We won't know about Boye Mafe, but he's hoping to get back. Who knows how much of Boye Mafe we will get. And without Reek Woolen, right? So, like, this is not ideal. On short rest, like, things are going to have to change for the Seahawks defensively just to make sure that they give that the Seahawks offense has a chance to keep them in the game. This cannot be a Detroit game. This cannot be a Detroit game. I don't think it's realistic to expect the Seahawks to put up those kind of numbers against this 49ers defense in this kind of game. So where do the Seahawks have some advantages? Where do the 49ers have some advantages? Well, I wrote my tale of the tape up there on hawkblogger.com. I recommend everybody take a look if you haven't already. And I will share with you a couple of the numbers to take a look at. All right. So what do we got here? First off, this is when the 49ers are on offense and the Seahawks are on defense. Okay. The 49ers, a key thing to know about the 49ers is, despite the fact that they have struggled to put teams away, they are number 2 in the NFL in yards and yards per play. This has been a very effective offense in moving the football. Where they have struggled is the red zone. And I am very wary of going into a game hoping that an offense is going to move the ball all over the place, but then just not be able to score touchdowns. The Detroit Lions had the same story going into the game against the Seahawks. They went 5 for 5 in the red zone. So I don't want to count on the Seahawks being able to just benefit from a red zone issue. But the other thing to kind of pay attention to, as much as Jordan Mason has been interesting, take a look at the rushing numbers here. Take a look at rush EPA and rush success rate. 20th in EPA, 18th in rush success rate. And this is a team that was the best running team in football last year. And so there's some interesting flaws here for the 49ers run game. And just wanted to call that out, as despite the fact that they are 7th in rushing yards, they are 20th in rush EPA and 18th in success rate. And believe it or not, the Seahawks are 10th in rush EPA. So given what I just told you about light boxes and neutral boxes, the Seahawks are 5th in the NFL in defending the run in neutral boxes when they have at least 7 defenders near the line of scrimmage. You got to do something. I think that's what you have to do. You have to take the run game, not away from the 49ers. I don't believe that's possible, but you have to force them out of being reliant on the run game. And you're going to have to cover well enough to be able to do it. The other thing to be aware of, This 49er team has given up a lot of sacks, a lot of pressure. And their right tackle, Colton McKivitz, has been extremely challenged to pass protect. In fact, if I take a look at Colton McKivitz as a tackle and I look at pass block efficiency, let's see if what this does for us. And I look at guys that have the most snaps here. Colton McKivitz is 45 out of 55 offensive tackles in pass block efficiency. I will say Stone Forsythe is 54 out of 55. It's not fun having your third string right tackle for the whole year. But Colton McKivitz is down there at 45. He's given up 10 pressures. And actually, excuse me, he has given up 16 pressures. In fact, the only player in the NFL that's given up more pressures is Stone Forsythe. So that has been an area of weakness. That is an opportunity for the Seahawks, especially if Boye Mafe is there. If they can get Boye Mafe and Derek Hall somehow, this would be a great game. Unlike the Detroit game where I just thought I wasn't sure that was going to be the difference, I think having 2 effective edge rushers would be big. This would be a great game for Draymond Jones to wake up, be effective. Not sure we're going to see it, but it would be huge. Travis Gibson has been pretty awful. Nice to have him have a decent game if he could find a way to it this time. So they need to get some edge pressure. It would be great to have Byron Murphy, but he's not going to be there. So you just got to deal. But I think that the other thing to pay attention to is this has been a team that has turned over the ball. So you've got a 49er team that ranks 26th in the NFL in giveaways. So that's another thing to pay attention to. But let's switch gears. Let's talk about the Seahawks on offense, okay? Let's talk about the Seahawks on offense, 49ers on defense. Before I get into all these numbers, let me just talk about, remember all those type formations I showed you with the 49ers? Well, let me switch for a second and see if I can do this quickly enough, given our time that we've got. Let me pull open Geno Smith plays where they are where they are in shotgun and where, let's see if I can get enough of these showing up. So a big question for Seahawks fans has been, what do you do when, let me see if I can get the right pieces here. I think this is right. Okay. So a big question for Seahawks fans has been, why is there no play action for the Seahawks? Why are they not running the ball enough? And the assumption is that part of the reason is, Ryan Grubb's just not calling those plays. And the other thing that people say is, man, if you've got an offensive line that's struggling, you got to do play action. You got to run the ball. I get it. But here's the other thing that you can do that the reason why you might be spreading people out. So if you take a look here, in this case, you have got Geno Smith in shotgun, and you've got some wide alignment. This is not a great example, but let me actually find the play I was looking for. I'm looking for some of these spread options that they've been going to. It's a little harder. I can't actually pull up exactly what I'm looking for. Wait, is this only week 1? No. So let's go to week 4. one of the things that happens when you've got teams spread out is that it is much harder because you see how wide everybody is here. 3 of the 4 receivers, are pretty wide of the formation. What that does is it forces the defense to also spread out. And what that does is it makes it a little bit, it's the opposite of what I said with the 49ers. It makes it harder to get, if you're going to send a blitz, it's going to be easier to identify where that's coming. They're going to probably be coming from farther away to get there. That gives your quarterback more time. You're in shotgun, you're spread out, and it gives your quarterback a better chance to identify a blitz and a better chance to throw away from it. It also makes defenders have to play in a lot more space. So one of the reasons that you do play action is because you're trying to create vertical space. You're trying to get linebackers to suck up so that you can get space in here. What Ryan Grubb has been doing is he's been trying to get horizontal space by spreading people out. That creates space kind of all over the field for him to take advantage of. In this particular case, a back stays in. Gino's got, in that case, plenty of time to make a throw because even though in this case, and let's take a look. Let's take a look at specifically at blitzes. Blitz. All right. So that's not a great example. That's an all right example. So you've got, in this case, you've got trips up top, and pre-snap, you've got 5 guys on the line. This guy mugging up, Anzalone mugging up in the gap. You've got, I don't know if that's I think it's a corner. Yeah, it's a corner. And then another linebacker here, right? So because the Seahawks have an extra, they have their tight end close to the line of scrimmage, it makes it easier to throw a blitz at you. And it makes it easier for the defense to get where they want to go. I think what you're going to see here with the Seahawks, they're going to have to run the ball. There's just no doubt about it. I think the only way that the Seahawks win this game is if they stick with the run. But I'd be really careful about saying, you know what, the Seahawks have to, get into play action all the time. I've been looking at that. The 49ers, by the way, also are toward the bottom in the NFL in play action rate. I don't think anyone's complaining about the 49ers not running play action enough. This is something that Kyle Shanahan's done more and more of lately by getting 5 receivers out into space. It really kind of gets some of the defensive coordinators out of blitz situations and can actually help your offensive line. So now let's take a look at some of these numbers. And what you see here is a Seahawks team that does have some advantages, right? Where the 49ers have some weakness, they've given up some rushing yards. They have given up some rushing yards per attempt. So they've given up some big runs there. Their rush EPA, their rush success rate, not great. This has not been one of the better run defenses in the NFL. And so you've got that. They also are near, let me actually take a look and see if I can find this real quick. I think they are near the top of the NFL in missed tackles as well. So look at what the Seahawks come in with. And the fact of the matter is that even though they have not run the ball a lot, they're not a bad running team. So let me pull this up. Team defense. Where did it go? Seasons, team defense. Okay. As far as missed tackles go, the 49ers, yes, they have 32 missed tackles. That's about 22nd in the league in terms of missed tackles. And believe it or not, the Seahawks run blocking is graded 13th in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. Their run grade, which is their running backs primarily, number 1 in the NFL. The 49ers run defense grade from PFF is 25th. So you've got the 25th graded run defense with 20th in rush EPA, 19th in rush success rate, 21st in rush yards per rush. The Seahawks have to run the ball. Nick Bosa said they know that that's what's going to happen. They know that Kenneth Walker is going to get the ball. Against the Cardinals, the 49ers were able to really stuff James Conner in the first half. And then in the second half, he went from like 6-7 yards in the first half to 80 yards in the second half. In order for this to work out, the Seahawks may need to stick with the run. They might have some shorter. What might have to happen is one of two things. Either the defense is going to have to keep this game close enough that the run game can finally get untracked, or Geno Smith is going to have to make some great third down plays. And one of the things to pay attention to, as much as we're talking about the Seahawks and missing players, 49ers likely, it sounds like their best cornerback, Travarius Ward, who's had a terrible season, might go to IR. And if he might go to IR, it seems very unlikely he's going to play Thursday. If he's not going to play, you're going to see a rookie, Renardo Green, get to play for the 49ers. And Renardo Green, whoops, I picked the wrong team. Renardo Green has had a 41.4 coverage grade, 48.5 overall. That's going to be tough. Diamador Lenore. I don't know why I have trouble with that name. Diamador Lenore has had a pretty good season in coverage. So he's going to be a guy that is going to be effective for them. And then you've got Isaac Yadam, who's another corner for them. And he has been okay. But if you're going to be asking those guys to cover in critical situations, while you've also got safeties that have struggled. Hufanga just went to the IR after coming back. Jair Brown, the second-year safety, 57 grade, 57.1 coverage. This has been a challenge for the 49ers to cover teams effectively. George Odom, it's not been great. Malik Mustafa, the rookie, has not been great. So you're either going to have a situation where Geno Smith is really coming through on third down. It could be you're talking about 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 7s maybe, and that they're going to convert those well enough that they can move the ball and get enough chances to get the run game going. Either that, or this is going to be a game where the Seahawks are going to have to hold the 49ers enough in the first half, first quarter. So that's kind of the game script here. The other pieces that I think I would just call out, 49ers have a decent sack rate. All right. They're 5th in the NFL in sack rate. Nick Bosa is obviously a huge part of that team. He will be active for them throughout the game. It can go on either side. Has had some good battles against Charles Cross. Charles Cross has taken a step back since the strong start. He's going to have a better game against the 49ers in order for them to be able to have a chance in this one. Then Leonard Floyd on the other side has been okay. Where they've gotten some success is guys like Kevin Givens and Malik Collins getting some pressure up the middle, where the Seahawks have had some challenges. Now, I don't think they have anybody that comes close to Dexter Lawrence. But that interior offensive line is going to have to play their best game of the season. I think it's possible. I don't think this is not one of the best lines that they're going to face. This is not even as good as the Lions defensive line. But if the 49ers are able to create a lot of disruptive pressure, it's going to be really hard for the Seahawks to have a consistent enough offense to win. So as I kind of close a little bit on this first look, couple guys and matchups to really pay attention to. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa are two of the best players at their positions in football. And they by themselves can take over a football game. Fred Warner has had some of the best football games I've seen at the inside linebacker position this year. This is not the same 49ers defense, though, that we've seen in past years where they just have greatness at every level. Hufanga was an all-pro safety. You had Greenlaw and Fred Warner. You had Bosa and Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner. You know, they just don't have the same weapons defensively. The Seahawks offense is better than the 49ers defense. I said it. I believe it. They're going to have to really run the ball. Like, there's no choice, but they need to be able to run the ball effectively in this game. If they do that, the Seahawks can keep the 49ers offense off the field. They can give the 49ers pass rush less chances to get home, and will create more opportunities for high leverage situations or tough situations for the 49ers secondary, which will be down some people. The Seahawks are going to have to score. They're likely going to have to score 26, 27 points to have a shot in this one. That's how good the offense is going to have to be. So far, if we look at the 49ers and what their games have been so far this season, the games they've lost are the games where they've given up more than 23 points. They gave up 23 to the Vikings. They gave up 27 to the Rams. They gave up 24 to the Cardinals. And in all those games, I think, well, at least in the Vikings game, some of that was a defensive scores. But in those games, they are 0-3. When they hold opponents under 20 points, they're 2-0. And the Seahawks, before last week, were the only team in the NFL that had scored at least 23 points in every game of the season. So, and they were about to score 23 before the field goal was blocked. So there is definitely hope that the Seahawks can win this game. There are just more ways for the 49ers to win it. And I'll say this. This game, in the grand scheme, matters a lot more to the 49ers. The 49ers are in the final throes of this stretch of players, of age, of all that stuff. They need to win a Super Bowl this year. Not the division, not this game. They need to win a Super Bowl this year. In order to win a Super Bowl, their best chance is to not be on the road, have home field advantage, definitely make the playoff, win the division would be helpful. They would be 0-3 in the NFC West if they drop this one. They're going to be going to the Chiefs. They could easily then be 2-5. So this game is huge for them. The Seahawks, they're building. If they win this, it accelerates their timeline. If they lose this, it just means this is probably not going to be the year that they take a big jump forward, or at least it's going to take a little longer. So I think it is the closest matchup between these two teams in the last 3 years. Even with all the injuries, even with the way the Seahawks are playing, this is the closest matchup between these two teams because the 49ers are not the same team that they've been. So huge opportunity. I will close up there. If you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. We are about to kick off Big Ray's Rewind, so find me on the other side. Look on YouTube and you will find the link to that. I will be with you just in a moment for that. Until then, I'm Brian Emhauser. This has been a first look at the Seahawks versus the 49ers.